You bought a Ford because you wanted an affordable, dependable car. You trusted American engineering. You trusted the brand. But right now, millions of Ford owners are experiencing the worst transmission problem in automotive history. It's called power shift. It's a dual clutch transmission that doesn't work. And Ford kept selling it for 6 years while knowing it was broken. Over 2 million owners are trapped in a nightmare that Ford refuses to fully acknowledge. This is the story of power shift, the transmission that destroyed Ford's reputation and left owners stranded on highways across America. On November 13th, 2024, Ford issued what they're calling their final recall related to power shift transmission issues. But this isn't a victory for owners. This is the end of a cover-up that lasted over a decade. The PowerShift DPS6 transmission was introduced in 2011. Ford marketed it aggressively. It was a new dual-clutch automatic that promised smooth shifting, better fuel economy, and sportier acceleration. The transmission was supposed to represent Ford's commitment to modern engineering. Instead, it became a symbol of corporate negligence. Within months of the 2011 Fiesta launch, complaints started pouring in. Transmission shuddering, transmission slipping, loss of power while driving, complete transmission failure. Ford never recalled all affected vehicles. They issued partial recalls covering specific production dates, specific engine combinations, specific model years. But the fundamental problem, the transmission design was flawed, never changed. The 2011-2016 Fiesta, the 2012-2016 Focus, the 2012-2016 C-Max Hybrid, and international markets with the PowerShift transmission experienced the same systemic failures. They've issued 8 recalls. 8, and owners are still experiencing transmission failure. This is a level of automotive failure that's almost incomprehensible. To understand PowerShift, you need to understand what a dual-clutch transmission is and why Ford's version failed so catastrophically. A dual-clutch transmission is theoretically superior to a traditional automatic. Instead of using hydraulic fluid to transfer power, it uses 2 separate clutches that work in tandem. One clutch handles odd-numbered gears first, third, fifth. The other handles even-numbered gears second, fourth, sixth. While you're in first gear, the transmission pre-selects second gear in the other clutch. When it's time to shift, the first clutch disengages while the second clutch engages instantly. Theoretically, no power loss, no interruption, seamless acceleration. But PowerShift was engineered on a budget. Ford cut every corner possible. The clutch materials were cheap, the actuators that control clutch engagement were underpowered, the transmission fluid that lubricates and cools the clutches was inadequate for the heat and stress. Under normal driving conditions, the dual clutches generate enormous heat. Temperatures inside the transmission can exceed 300 degrees Fahrenheit. The transmission fluid is supposed to cool these clutches, but Ford's fluid breaks down at these temperatures. It oxidizes. It loses viscosity. It can no longer properly lubricate the clutch surfaces. When clutch surfaces aren't properly lubricated, they start to slip. You press the accelerator and the engine revs, but the car doesn't accelerate. That's clutch slip. Once the clutches start slipping, they generate even more heat, which breaks down the fluid further, which causes more slipping. It's a death spiral. Independent transmission experts have documented the exact failure sequence. After approximately 80,000 to 120,000 miles of normal driving, the clutch materials degrade. The transmission fluid has broken down. The transmission enters what Ford calls limp mode. It forces the car into a single gear and refuses to shift. You're essentially driving a car that can't change gears. Acceleration is gone. Highway merging is impossible. The transmission is dead. What did Ford know about PowerShift's failures, and when did they know it? Internal Ford documents discovered through litigation and FOIA requests show that Ford engineers identified the core PowerShift problem before the 2011 Fiesta ever hit dealership lots. The transmission was overheating under normal driving conditions. The fluid was breaking down. The clutch materials were inadequate, but Ford had already committed to PowerShift. They had spent billions developing the transmission. Admitting it was broken would have required a massive recall, massive costs, and massive reputation damage. So Ford made a decision. They would sell the cars anyway, knowing the transmission would likely fail, and then they would address the failures with software patches and recalls as they happened. In 2012, as complaints flooded in, Ford's customer service tracked over 2,000 warranty claims related to transmission shuddering and slipping. Internal memos show engineers discussing potential systematic issue with dual clutch engagement calibration. Translation: the transmission was broken. Instead of issuing a comprehensive recall and fixing the transmission, Ford issued a software update that changed how the transmission's clutches engaged. The new software was more aggressive about preventing clutch slip, but it increased heat generation, which accelerated fluid breakdown, which made the problem worse faster. By 2014, Ford had issued 3 recalls. By 2015, 5 recalls. By 2016, 6 recalls. And owners were still reporting failures. Ford kept issuing software patches, stretching warranties case by case, settling individual lawsuits quietly with NDAs. But they never fixed the core problem, because they couldn't. The transmission design was fundamentally flawed. Fixing it would have required a complete redesign, new parts, and a massive recall of millions of vehicles. So Ford did what many corporations do: they managed the problem instead of solving it. The human cost of power shift is staggering. Behind every recall number are real people with real stories of automotive betrayal. A teacher in Georgia purchased a 2012 Focus with 36-month factory warranty. She followed every maintenance schedule. She changed the oil, replaced the filters, took perfect care of the car. At 87,000 miles, the transmission failed completely. Ford's PowerShift transmission affected over 2 million vehicles across multiple continents. 8 recalls that didn't fully solve the problem. Countless lawsuits. Billions of dollars in costs that Ford has fought tooth and nail to avoid covering. If you've been affected by PowerShift transmission failures, please share your story in the comments. Let other owners know what you've experienced. If you found this information helpful, hit the like button and subscribe for more automotive deep dives. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.